What's going on, people? Your eyes and your ears don't lie. I'm back at you. I'm watching some of the bullshit that Pete Hegseth is saying with his racist white nationalist ass about how he trying to defend Confederate bases and monuments. And not that I expected anything smart to come out of his mouth. When you're talking about a dude who he has white supremacist tattoos all over himself. So the response he gave was exactly what I expected from a white supremacist. And he's saying that we shouldn't want to try to erase history because these army bases that are named after Confederate generals who are traitors, enemies of the state, who took up arms against the United States of America in the defense of slavery. You fucking trading piece of shits. You guys are traitors. You're enemies of the country, and you committed treason, and y'all get rewarded with your legacy getting bases and shit. Because that's what it's about. You guys are all fucking traitors who took up arms against the United States of America to defend slavery. You scumbag son of a bitches. And all of y'all that are out here pushing these Confederate flags and shit, y'all the same. Because there's something about the values and morals y'all carry and what y'all really believe in. And if you believe in the Confederacy, you believe in slavery, and you a piece of shit. So we got, 9 army bases? So you honoring a legacy of 9 traitors? And he has the nerve to say that all of these soldiers that have come through these Confederate army bases have an emotional bond with the base and memories. So we can't change those names and erase that legacy. You a stupid son of a bitch. You really are a stupid. Were you drunk when you said that? Because he a drunk, he a wino. So here's the bases we got. We got Fort Bragg, traitor-ass general, fought for the Confederates against the United States of America in North Carolina. Fort Benning in Georgia, same, traitor. Fort Hood in Texas, traitor. Fort Lee, traitor. Fort Pickett in Virginia, traitor. And Fort Lee's in Virginia, if I didn't mention, traitor. Fort Polk in Louisiana, traitor. Fort Gordon in Georgia, traitor. Fort Rucker in Alabama, traitor. And Fort A.P. Hill in Virginia, traitor. And you see a pattern? North Carolina, Georgia, Texas, Virginia, Louisiana, Georgia, Alabama. I see a pattern. I see a clear pattern on how y'all revere slavery and support it. That's why you're fighting so hard for these Confederate bases and these monuments. People gonna tell me how I need to leave California because it's so much more affordable in all those places. Fuck them places. Fuck anywhere where you can rock a Confederate flag without no problems. Fuck your state if you got a Confederate flag flying at your capital. Because a lot of them, they had Confederate flags up until 2020. And after, where you had Confederate state flags and shit, and you finally changed that shit, but it wasn't really because you did it because you thought it was politically correct, but you didn't really want to. Because you caved to people demanding that shit get changed back. Y'all traitors. Racist hate mongers. What country's gonna honor traitors that fought against them? The United States about to start putting up Saddam Hussein flags? You about to start putting up a goddamn Osama bin Laden statue? I know you guys want to put up Adolf Hitler statues, but y'all really need to now because you got Adolf Trump. You got Adolf Trump who can carry that torch. Y'all some real scumbags. But y'all act like y'all got the moral high ground. Say and do the most fucked up shit and then end it on with God and we gonna pray. try to fall back on non-existent Christian values. Because I don't know what Bible you looking at. Because we already know, talk about you voted for Trump for Christian values. Bitch, shut up. You know how many people I heard say that stupid shit? I remember when he was interviewed and asked him, he said the Bible was his favorite book because he couldn't repeat the fact that your wife and a lot of other people said your favorite book was Mein Kampf, that you sleep with it next to your bed. You didn't sleep next to the Bible, you slept next to Mein Kampf. Because y'all got to remember, that's where his family's from. That's where his family is from, Germany. And then they got ran out of Germany into another country and then fled to the U.S. He got two uncles that were killed in the war fighting for the Nazis, not against them. And the rest of his family, they draft dodgers. So they got kicked out of Germany because they draft dodgers. So it didn't start with him. He come from a long line of draft dodgers. And a patriotic bone in his body. Unless he liked the New England Patriots. That's the closest he can get to being a patriot. And this military shit burned me up. Because I come from 5 generations of military soldiers. I was born in Camp Pendleton. I did my time. Seen a lot, still associate with a lot of military people. Vets, active duty, reservists. And then Pete Hegseth talking about all the soldiers I talked to, one of the names changed back. You a goddamn lie. Because soldiers that know what that shit means, they know they traitors. So they weren't angry about the name changing. The only people who cared about the name changing that were angry were you racists who want shit to be back to what it was before the civil rights movement and pre-Civil War. Because y'all never wanted slavery to end. And after slavery ended, you know what the Confederates did? They switched to being fucking Democrats. And over the period of time that, from when that happened to now, the tables turned. And that's not to say that there's not racist Democrats, because, like I said, racism ain't a political party or an ethnicity. It's a person who is internally broken. Because they come in all shapes, sizes, colors, and political demographics. So I'm not trying to say anything about anyone specific, because a racist is a racist. It don't matter what color you are. It don't matter whether you vote Democrat or Republican. But this MAGA movement is clearly on some white nationalism shit. Because you can't talk about no policies that actually benefit you in a manner that makes the vote worthwhile. So if you break down the concepts of a plan this dumb son of a bitch had, you ain't falling into the categories that you could say you're not a racist. Wealthy, that makes sense. There were a lot of billionaires that didn't want him to win because they know he's a fucked up businessman and he's going to fuck the economy up. But they know that he's going to favor them for tax breaks and shit like that, and that he could be bought. So they would have preferred another option, but they still know they can get rich under him. So that's your wealthy. The largest group, like I said in another video, the largest group is his racist ass motherfuckers. And you got some self-hating people of color that you thought selling out fucking with them, you gonna become one of them? You ain't never gonna be one of them. You ain't never gonna be one of them, no matter how hard you try. So you sold out yourself to not be on the team. You not even on the bench. You still in the locker room when the team came out to the field. And the racists, that's the largest group. Just hateful scumbags. And people begging for a chance to be accepted at their own expense. And then you just have some ignorant, stupid ass people that they really are dumb. They do no fact checking. They do no research. Can't count to 20 without taking off their shoes and socks. And they just believe whatever he says. And a lot of why they believe whatever he says is because they're ignorant as hell and he looks like them. He's speaking a language to them. Especially when you talk and listen to these older people. The largest demographic that watches Fox. Y'all know what y'all are. Old, white, and stupid. And you know how many times I hear from people that tell me that, well, that's just how things were when they were growing up. So it makes it okay? Because that's a huge factor, is that a lot of these seniors, especially, Trump's age and around that age, they were alive and they have a clear recollection of what things were like before the civil rights movement. And they liked it. And that's not all of them. Some of them adapted and realized that was for the birds. That wasn't the right way to do shit. But you got a huge swath in the population that have harbored resentment since then because they didn't want it to change. They want to wake up every day and be empowered just by the color of their skin. And they feel like that was stolen from them. And that's how he's really been able to tap into that side of the society and convince them that their shit has been stolen when it hasn't. Diversity is not a bad thing, except for a racist white nationalist. So you going back to this Confederate shit because you want to go back to when you think America was great. And you think America was great before the Civil War, before civil rights. That's the period he thinks America was great. I'll never forget. I was a little kid. I used to love watching the Dukes of Hazzard. Boss Hoss, Roscoe P. Coltrane, Bo and Luke Duke, and of course, Daisy. Uncle Jesse. I used to watch the fuck out that shit. And one day my mom came in there and seen that shit on the TV. Because she's from Huntsville, Alabama. Born in South Carolina, but grew up in Huntsville, Alabama. Gang of family down there, all throughout that region. Hattiesburg, Mississippi, all of that. Spent a lot of time down there. And it's a way of life I ain't fucking with. But she came in there and told me to turn that shit off. I didn't understand why my mom was mad. And then she told me what the Confederates were about and what that Confederate flag meant on the General Lee. I never watched that shit again. Once I knew what that Confederate flag represented on the hood of that damn car. But I used to love that shit. Because I'm oblivious to it. I'm just watching a TV show. I'm watching them outrun Boss Hall or Boss Hoss, and it was just entertainment. But a lot of shit has a meaning. Like, when you're talking about the meaning of things, that tells you where we're at as a society where you get away with that show. Where you get away with All in the Family, Archie Bunker and shit. Because I grew up watching those old shows. Why? Because my mom used to watch some of them. She didn't watch All in the Family and shit like that. We're more the Jefferson type people. But I do remember watching In the Heat of the Night with her, where I seen the original with Sidney Poitier. And then I watched that series. We watched it every week when it came on with Chief Gillespie in Sparta. And he was a real live racist till he changed his ways later on in life. Carol O'Connor talked about that, where it was so embedded in him that it was a way of life. That's all he knew. So he wasn't acting when he was playing that racist ass chief at the beginning of the series. He really had them feelings. He really had them feelings when it was All in the Family. That's how he felt, because it was acceptable. And as time went on, that light switch came on. And he realized the error of his ways. But that ain't everybody. There's a lot of people that this is generational stuff that happens. You're not born hateful. You're not born with those beliefs. They're instilled in you. So there's no way to change that unless you start changing that shit in the house. Or you move away from where you came from. A lot of these places in rural America, that's a way of life. Everybody knows their position, they know their role, and they stay in it. Some of the shit that I was encountering when I was in the South, I'm looking at some of these other black folks and shit, and I'm like, you gonna let them talk to you like that? But you just happy that they're not hanging you from a tree. So you've grown accustomed to some of the bullshit because it's better than it used to be. Nah, I'm not with that. I'll stay my ass in California where, yes, there's some racism in California, but it ain't anywhere near the levels that it is when you start going into these Trump strongholds. And like I said, I ain't gonna act like there ain't no racism here, because you can see the difference now once these people got on this Trump shit, where they feeling empowered. You made them so proud that you shared their beliefs that they went out and bought all these stupid ass flags, and you see it in their little, they mouthpiece now. But it'll disappear. You'll go back to being cowards. Because eventually, y'all ain't gonna win. You winning now because he in office and you got control of the judicial branch, but you ain't gonna win in the long run. Because now with this big, beautiful bullshit, you done fucked over them and they don't care. They're not angry at the, behavior. They're angry at the result that it affects them. And we'll see in the polls